Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Hello, everybody. No one's out there yet. But to those people who are watching later on, hello to you. We're going to wait a few seconds here, see if anyone else pops up on the channel while we wait to start here the 784th episode of the Wednesday show. It is showing that we're having some connection issues, but my whole complex has been having some connection issues today, so I'm guessing that that's what it is. I know that there is a person who's on site right now working on the connection, so if we are having some problems, I don't know what we're going to do. I think we might be having connection issues because right now it's still showing that we have no one on. And usually we have a few people who are on by now. So I'm trying to figure out here. Maybe I'll set up a mobile hotspot here. I wonder if that would work better. With the mobile hotspot. Oh, there we go. We got some people hopping on. Hola. Hello, hello. How you guys doing? Frank fam in the house. I'm trying to figure out, do you think this would work? This potential hotspot thing might work out better than it. Are you guys having connection issues? We got the Frank fam, we got Matt. Is it coming through okay, or is it grainy, or because otherwise I'm kind of thinking we try to connect to a mobile hotspot. But right now it's actually showing on my end that my internet connection's fine, but it's also showing that okay, it's working fine. Okay, so we're gonna ignore it. My thing up here, so you guys can't see it on your side, but on my side it shows like the connection issues for the actual streaming, and right now it's like 1 bar out of 6. So I'm like, hopefully everything's okay. But let's do this thing. We're going to start the 784th episode of the Wednesday show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 784th episode of the Wednesday show. Today is August 28th, 2024, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. Today we're going to be going through and talking about Disney with you guys. You guys are going to be choosing the topic in just a few minutes here. But of course, before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. First off, thank you everyone out there who's been joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday, we are coming to you live from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. This Saturday is no different whatsoever. We'll be coming to you someplace from Disney, so make sure you join us this coming up Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time over on my YouTube channel for some Disney fun. Also, we talked about it last week, but we are having it so next week we will be on a Disney cruise, so make sure you join us next week for a very special episode of the Wednesday show where we will be coming to you live from the Disney Magic. Ooh, how excited. Other people are like, well, we'll see how it's going here. And of course, as we go through here, if we get more subscribers throughout the night, we will go into extra innings. Our starting number is 7,801. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. If you've not liked this video yet, make sure you like the video as well, because that helps us as well. And of course, as always, tonight's episode is sponsored by our wonderful I couldn't get the ball out of there. Patreon pals. They'll make your life amazing. I don't know what that song was, but it's okay. So let's get to it. What is this right here? Hi from the ER. This shows them. Oh my gosh, Shelly, are you okay? I'm here for Shelly, we are thinking about you, praying for you, sending you good vibes. We will have it so this Wednesday show is going to be the best Wednesday show ever. Hopefully, don't count on that actually happening. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you guys 3 options tonight. You guys are going to vote on the 3 options, and whatever you guys vote on is going to be what our episode is going to be about tonight. Now, Shelly, actually, was it you? I think you're the one who actually gave the suggestion of a episode about Tom Sawyer Island. So we will have Tom Sawyer Island as one of the options. We will have an Ask the Expert as another section or another option. And then our final one that we can have will be a game of Connect the Dots, because I always like a game of Connect the Dots, and you guys always like a game of Connect the Dots. So those are our three options. I'm going to give you guys about a minute or two to throw your votes into the comments below. So our episode is going to be about either Tom Sawyer Island and Ask the Expert, where you throw any and all Disney questions at me, and I will go through and answer as many as we possibly can, or a game of Connect the Dots, where you guys throw a bunch of random Disney items at me, and I connect the dots from one to another in the order that they throw out there. So throw your options down, and whatever has the most votes after a minute or two, that will be our episode this evening. Ooh. Okay, we've got a few votes coming through here. Wait a minute. Just trying. There we go. Hopefully. Earthquake. By the way, so the people who went to D23, there's an earthquake out there the one day, and I kind of wish that I had. I've never experienced an earthquake before, so maybe in 2 weeks we'll have earthquake when I'm out there. Not that I'm really I don't really want it to happen, but still. We got a vote for Tom Sawyer Island, 2 for Tom Sawyer Island, and 1 for Connect the Dots, 3 for Tom Sawyer Island. Tom Sawyer Island is pulling ahead here. You guys have about 30 seconds left to throw your votes in there, but I have a feeling we might be doing an episode about the one, the only Tom Sawyer Island this evening. It's just shaking, the earthquake. Tom Sawyer, you were in Cars Land when it happened. I've never had an earthquake. I've never experienced that. Okay, so tonight we're going to be doing an episode all about Tom Sawyer Island, as a lot of you guys are throwing out there. Now, here's the thing. Let's start us off the way that I think we should start us off, because last week we talked a little bit about Tom Sawyer Island being replaced sometime in the near future for the Cars edition to Magic Kingdom, along with Villain's Land. And while I am extremely excited for both of those things to happen, I am also extremely sad about Tom Sawyer Island leaving. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to do a little walkthrough of Tom Sawyer Island. We're also going to talk about the history of Tom Sawyer Island. We're going to talk about some fun facts of Tom Sawyer Island and a whole lot more, all themed around Tom Sawyer Island. But of course, before we get to Tom Sawyer Island, it's insanely important that we talk about the person who's behind Tom Sawyer Island, which would be Mark Twain, aka Samuel Langhorne Clemens. All of those names that I just said, all 3 of them, are going to come up as we go through this episode tonight. So pay attention, people. Otherwise, you're going to be missing out. So Samuel Langhorne Clemens, aka Mark Twain, grew up on the Mississippi River, and in the late 1800s, he would write 2 books that would change the world of literature by storm. Like, no joke, I'm not exaggerating. Both of these books became massive, massive hits, and they also changed a lot of different literary people in the community on how they wrote and how they approached the way that books were written. Because Tom Sawyer, along with Huckleberry Finn, were 2 books that were not exactly the most correct English. It was not the, oh, over there, he will go through and drink from their cup. It wasn't proper English, but it was more of how people would actually speak in Missouri as a kid. And it was real dialogue, and it completely changed the course of how literary writers would go through and actually write books. So it was a very interesting concept. It became a massive hit. And of course, Tom Sawyer Island would become a hero of the one and only Walt Disney. Now, Walt Disney also growing up in Missouri. Now, one of them would grow up in Marceline, Missouri. The other one would grow up in Hannibal, Missouri. Were actually not too far away from one another. So Walt Disney growing up in Marceline, Missouri, said he had a lot of admiration for both Mark Twain and Tom Sawyer Island, and he identified with the character of Tom Sawyer as he grew up in Marceline, Missouri, because a lot of the different similarities that he experienced was things that Mark Twain experienced through the eyes of Tom Sawyer, mainly focusing on the idea of imaginative play, going on adventures, having friends, and of course, Becky Thatcher. She was a lovely, lovely girl. But it's not true at all. Oh, maybe she was a lovely, lovely girl, but I don't think that was the shared interest. Anyways, completely besides the point. I'm just talking, which is what I do a lot. So when Walt Disney was growing up, he became a huge fan of Mark Twain along with Tom Sawyer, and those stories stuck with him for years and years and years until eventually in 1954, when we would have a brand new concept that was being created called Disneyland. Disneyland, an amazing place where all your dreams can come true. So when he was coming up with the concept of Disneyland, of course, we've talked about it several times before, but you would have things like Frontierland, where Tom Sawyer Island would be, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, Adventureland, and Main Street USA. Those would be our 5 main lands when the park first opened up. Not just the 5 main lands; those were the 5 only lands that were at the park when it first opened up. So when they were going through and having it so they were creating these different lands, one of the things that they wanted to do was have it so Frontierland would be the biggest land of them all. And actually, if you look at a map of Disneyland when the park first opened up, Frontierland was without a doubt the largest land of them all, covering about a third of the entire park, which still to this day is mind-boggling to me because now it's like the smallest land in Disneyland. But it was a massive land that covered where you currently can find Critter Country. You can also currently find New Orleans Square and parts of Adventureland as well, where Indiana Jones is, just like the outskirts of it though. So when they would go through and they would actually be creating this brand new land, they want to go on a pilgrimage of all these different literary characters and legendary characters that helped create the frontier times. So of course we would have characters like Davy Crockett, Zorro, and of course Tom Sawyer himself. Walt Disney was so set on the idea of the Tom Sawyer Island idea being in Frontierland, specifically inside of Disneyland, that when you go through and look at the history of all of the Disney attractions from 1954 all the way until Walt Disney passed away in 1966, there is only one attraction that is actually labeled as Walt Disney as the head Imagineer, and that, my friends, is Tom Sawyer Island. Tom Sawyer Island was created by Walt Disney. The entire idea, the entire concept, the entire layout, the entire caves, everything that's on that island. Now you get the pirate stuff over there, but everything that's on that island over in Disneyland, the basic foundation of it all was created by Walt Disney himself. So naturally, when the Imagineers started going through and trying to figure out ways to bring Disneyland attractions over to Walt Disney World, they said, of course, we have to have a Tom Sawyer Island. So naturally, on opening day, Tom Sawyer Island was closed. That's right. It did not open up for the first few years, actually, of the entire park being in operation. However, when you would go on the Rivers of America around the riverbend, you would go past 2 islands. One of them was known as Tom Sawyer Island. The other one was called the North Island. And then eventually the 2 islands would be connected by a bridge and they would become conjointly Tom Sawyer Island. So let's get a little bit into Tom Sawyer Island itself, because when you go over to Tom Sawyer Island in Frontierland, there are so many great stories, there are so many amazing details, there are so many things that we need to talk about tonight. Of course, while we also go through here, I want you guys to go through and throw as many questions about Tom Sawyer Island as possible, because I know that 1, I'm going to be talking at a very fast pace because I'm very excited about the subject. 2, I want to have it so you guys have all your answers or questions answered. And 3, I'm sure because of the way that I will be talking, we might run out of time earlier than later. So start throwing those questions about Tom Sawyer Island into the comments below, and we will get to them as we go through here. Now, as I said last week, Tom Sawyer Island is without a doubt one of my favorite sections of all of Walt Disney World. And I'm not just saying that because it's going away. It drives me crazy, all these people. There's so many people that I talk to are like, it's my favorite part of the park. And I'm like, I've never heard you talk about this once before. But it legit, I've gone on record. It's in this book, A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom of Frontierland. It's in that book stating that it is one of my favorite sections in all of Walt Disney World. It truly, if Walt Disney World makes you feel like a kid, Tom Sawyer Island makes you play like a kid. It has been one of my favorite areas in the park since I was a little kid. And even to this day, I still try to get over there at least once a month and just explore the caves. Even though I know every inch of the caves, I try to have it so I go into all the different mills and up and the fort, everything. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to go through. We're going to talk about every detail that is possibly found on this thing. I do have my trusty book with me here because I know there are going to be a few details where I'm going to get wrong. And while we are going through these caves and possibly getting some of them wrong, just bear with me because I am drawing to. I always confuse two of the sections every single time that I talk about it. But anyways, so let's talk a little bit more about the history of the island, because the island would open up in 1973. But when it opened up in 1973, there were a few things that were different then compared to what it is now. The main thing being Aunt Polly's. So over there, you could actually have it so you could stop by Aunt Polly's, and at that point, you could get sandwiches or ice cream. Eventually, it turned into just an ice cream shop, and then it eventually turned into a spot where you can find a vending machine that says "Ship to Aunt Polly's." That's the current rendition of it. In addition to Aunt Polly's being there, we would also have it so there were different things like finding paintbrushes on the island. Now, the paintbrush tradition did not start originally when the island first began, but it would develop over time, and then it would take full force in 1998 when Disney launched a brand new thing called the Fast Pass system. Ooh. So when Fast Passes were entered into the park, one of the Imagineers or one of the cast members said, you know what we could do is we could hide these paintbrushes around the island. If someone finds the paintbrush, they could bring it to a cast member. That cast member could give them a paper Fast Pass for either Splash Mountain, which had been open for about 9 years at that point, or Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, which had been open for about 18 years at that point. Both of them fan favorite attractions at that point in time. So, of course, it just made sense to let people skip the line if they found a paintbrush. So every morning what they would do is they would hide 5 different paintbrushes. All 5 paintbrushes would have the little paint area on the top for the whitewashed wall. And now if you didn't know why they have these paintbrushes, let me explain why. So in the story of Tom Sawyer, when Tom Sawyer was there, his aunt forced him to whitewash a wall. So while he was whitewashing the wall, a bunch of kids came over and they said, "Oh man, it's too bad you're doing that. Like, we're going to go play down by the creek." And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, that doesn't sound any fun. I'm having a better time than you guys are." And he started to trick all the different kids to whitewash the wall. In turn, they would actually give him different things. They'd say, "Well, I'll give you a frog if you let me whitewash the thing." It's a frog? No, this is way too much fun. And you need to give me a frog and a nickel. And so all these different kids he would be tricking through. So when you would go to Tom Sawyer Island, you could go out there, you could actually find these paintbrushes. On the paintbrush itself, let's pretend this is a paintbrush. On the paintbrush itself, you would have it this part, and then it would actually be the part where you could paint. On the base area that connected the actual bristles of the paintbrush to the actual handle, there would be a sign that says, "Please return this to a cast member for a redemption of a very nice prize." And then you would bring it over and they'd be like, "Here's a Fast Pass for you." If you did a good enough job, or if you knew how to play around with the cast members like I did, I would go up to the cast members and I'd be like, "Here's your paintbrush." And even if it was just me, they'd be like, "Okay, so how many in your party?" Because they would give one for every person in your party. And I go, "Oh, there's 12 of us." And they'd be like, "Well, where's the other 12?" I'd be like, "Oh, they're all invisible." And sometimes they would actually think it's funny and they'd give you 12 Fast Passes and you're like, "Ha, ka-ching." So when you would go through, you would find these paintbrushes. And eventually what happened is when they created Fast Pass Plus, which had it so you could go through and book Fast Passes on your phone, they slowly dissolved the idea of using these paintbrushes, mainly due to the fact that they were not handing you a physical Fast Pass anymore, but it would all be digitalized, and they didn't want to have it so they had these digitalized things for the cast members there. So it became a big mess, but unfortunately we lost the paintbrushes in that area. That book is the thickness of one chapter in the Dinoland book. This book right here is 130 some pages. 132, and then we got the past attractions about the author, other books by Brent Dodge, and then just some blank pieces of paper as well to make it look thicker. No, it's just because I don't know. I don't make those decisions. That's the publishing company that says this is how this works. But yes, you are pretty accurate. It is about the same size. Okay, so keep on asking your questions in the comments. We're going to go through them as much as possible. But let's get to our storyline here. In the storyline, we are playing the role of Tom Sawyer, or one of Tom Sawyer's friends. Both Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn have invited us to go out to the island to explore ourselves. So when we are out there, they have left their caves open for us to play. They have also had it so there is a fort that we can explore that is at the edge of the woods. So my friends, let's do this. We're going to take a walkthrough of Tom Sawyer Island. Hello, Kelly. How you doing? Okay, let's get to this. So originally when Tom Sawyer Island would first open up until about 2 years ago, there would be a few different rafts that you could take across. In fact, there was actually 4 different rafts that you could take across. There was the Tom Sawyer, the Huckleberry Finn, the Becky Thatcher, and then the Injun Joe, named after one of the characters in the book, or all 4 of them are named after the characters in the book. However, the name Injun Joe became more controversial over the last few years. So when that happened, they decided to scrap the names on all 4 ships. And all 4 ships are now just a blank slate. None of them are actually named after a specific one or a specific character. They're just all blank rafts. So you would actually take the boat from mainland, or the raft from mainland Frontierland, right outside of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad / Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and we would go across the river to Tom's Landing. Now, there's also a Huck's Landing during the busier times, like now because it's closing. But during the busier times, they would have it so you could be dropped off at both spots. But Tom's Landing is the main landing that is found directly across from where like Country Bear Jamboree is. So we are going to start off our little walkthrough at Tom's Landing. Now, Tom's Landing does have a massive shed there that does say Tom's Landing on it. It's painted because naturally everything here is painted because of, the whitewashing fence. So when we get over there, we start off at Tom's Landing, and you can go around the corner because everyone is forced to go one way, and then the loading is the other way. But when we go around the corner, we can find, first off, a sign from Tom Sawyer himself. Now, the Tom Sawyer sign goes through and explains to you about how this whole area, this whole island, has become a play place for Tom Sawyer, and it's actually written from Tom's point of view, but he is inviting you to go off and explore the island and have some fun. And then at the end, it says Tom was here, and then Huck Finn wrote down Huck too. On the right-hand side of that, we can find some stairs, and next to the stairs on the opposite side, we can also find a map of the entire island. Now, this map is a completely accurate, map, going through and explaining every single thing. Let's go to our first question here while we go through here. What's your favorite cave? My favorite cave is going to be the second cave that we're going to cover. Right now, we're going to be covering the first cave, which is going to be Old Scratch's Mystery Mine. So Old Scratch's Mystery Mine has some really cool details in it. However, it's a very simple cave. But let's go through and talk about Old Scratch's Mystery Mine. Okay, so the reason that this is a mystery mine is because there is some confusion about what the illusions are. Now, when you get into this cave, like I said, it is a very simple cave. You go through, you take a right, then you go down a little bit, then you take a left, then you take a right, then you take a right, then you take a left, then you take a left, and then you go down, and there's a little hallway on the left-hand side. This is exactly the layout of the cave. Don't even try me. I know exactly how to go through these caves with my eyes closed. Maybe I'll try that tomorrow. But you go through and eventually you get to a room. Now, in this room, if you are with people who've never been inside of this cave before, I can almost guarantee you that what you will hear them say is, whoa, the floor is weird. It's slanted. Well, there's a reason that it's slanted, because when you are looking on the left-hand side, there is some boards there. There are 3 different boards. If you look through those boards, you can find an old, panning for mining, where you pan the station. So it's like a little bit of water that's going down there so you can pan for gold. Now, if you pay attention to the water that is found there, you might notice something kind of weird. And this is why it's a mystery mine and not just a regular mine. The water is not going downhill, but it's actually going uphill. And then also, if you take a look to the right, you can find this amazing wall with a bunch of jewels kind of sticking out of it on the right-hand side. And then at the bottom of it, you can see another river, a little stream. And if you take a look at the stream, it is also flowing up instead of down. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, that's just some imagineering craziness at work, and I don't know how that's happening. But let me explain how it's happening. Because as I said, a lot of times when you are in this room with people who've never been inside this room before, you will hear them say, "Why is the ground weird?" Well, that's just part of Old Scratch's mystery mind. That's just the words that I said earlier. That's why I'm repeating them right now. Now, the reason that the ground is weird is to give you a completely different sense of belief on what things are. Because while you're in this room, yes, the water looks like it is flowing uphill, but in fact, it is going downhill. And the reason that it actually is going uphill, but actually downhill, is because the way that you are standing on the floor is slanted to make you feel like you are actually parallel with these things. But in reality, the whole room is shifted, and because it's shifted, it's making all the water look like it's going up, when in reality, it's going down, and it's all because of the way that you are standing on the ground. It's confusing, I know, but next time you're in there, pay attention to it, and you'll be like, oh, this is what the guy's talking about. That internet boy, Brindesh, the internet boy. At the very back right-hand corner of the room, you can go around a corner, and when you get into the corner and you get into the next mine, or not the next mine, but the next room of the mine, we have our next really cool detail, and that is you can look down, and if you have someone standing at the far end and they are looking at you on this end, the people on the far end look massive because the way that the cave goes down, it shrinks down on all three sides. So while you are walking, the room is getting smaller to make it look like you are bigger to the people who are on the other side. And then it's the exact same thing on the opposite end. Whoever's on the side that has the smaller portion of the room, if they turn around and they look at the people who are entering into that hallway, they look very, very tiny because of the illusion of expansion. It is another thing of forced perspective, but this time you are actually playing a role in the room. After you go down that hallway, you can take a right and you can go out and exit Tom Sawyer, or not Tom Sawyer Island. Don't leave the island. We are still on the island, people. You can leave Old Scratch's Mystery Mine. When you get to Old Scratch's Mystery Mine, you are on the right-hand side of the map that we saw when we first entered into the area. So this is our perfect time to go exploring a little bit more. Now, what we could do is we could go to the right and go past Old Scratch's Mystery Mine, or we could go to the left. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to the left. So we're going to go towards the river and then take a left with the river facing towards Frontierland and Country Bear Jamboree and the Pin Shop and the old shooting arcade. All that stuff is going to be there on our left-hand side. This is where I have to look in here for a second because I always forget which name is which name. And I'm pretty sure I know which one it is, but I just want to double check real quick here. Yes. Okay. So there we have our first building that we're going to go inside, and this is Harper's Mill. Now, Harper's Mill is named after two different people. And I know what you're thinking, well, that's kind of weird. It is kind of weird, but let's get through it. So Harper is one of the characters that is actually found inside of the book, Tom Sawyer. If you go through there, there's a guy whose name is Joe Harper in the film. Now, Joe Harper, or in the book, not the film. There's a film too. He's in the film too, but he's mainly in the book. We're mainly talking about the book tonight. So when you go over there, we have it so Joe Harper is one of the characters, and it's a nice little nod to him. However, this does have a double meaning because it's not just a nod to Joe Harper from the book, but it's also a nod to Harper Goff, who is one of the Imagineers that created pretty much everything in Disneyland and Walt Disney World. So Harper Goff is the person who is very famous for doing cartography and having it so he was one of the people who actually helped lay out the entire foundation of what Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom would look like. However, that is not the only cool fun fact about this specific area, because there are things here that are so much more amazing that we need to take a look at. Because if you know anything about the history of Disney animation, then you probably know a little bit about Mickey Mouse debuting in 1928. The following year, we got the Silly Symphonies. And with the Silly Symphonies, we had it so Walt Disney was creating new techniques of how to make film and how to make his stories enhanced and even better. So when he was going through and making all these different really cool techniques, he created the very first short cartoon that would use the multiplane camera, an invention that they created, where you would have different layers of animation with 5 different levels. So it would have bottom well down here, this would be the thing that was furthest away in the picture. Then our next one would be the second furthest away, third furthest away, second closest, and first closest. You would look through there, and while they were going through, it allowed everything to have a sense of depth as you would go through the different drawings. Now, the very first time that they would use this would be in a cartoon called The Old Mill. That's very important. Let's get to it. Because even though it's called The Old Mill, you also know that we are at the Old Mill, or at an old mill called Harper's Mill. So when you go inside of Harper's Mill, it's not working right now. So if you go over there right now and you don't see it, I apologize. But if you go over there inside of this mill, you will notice a few different things. Still to this day, you will hear an owl hooting. Woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. You will also hear the sound of cogs turning. They're not turning right now. And you will also hear a bird chirping. Now, when you would go and watch the old cartoon, The Old Mill, which would come out back in the early 1930s, during The Old Mill, they had it so the entire opening shot of this thing was going through this field, and in it you would have these three old mills. We would eventually get into one old mill, and in that shot we would have an owl hooting, we would have a bird chirping, and we'd also hear the cogs turning. While it was going through, it would create this musical noise, and if you go over to Harper's Mill over at Tom Sawyer Island at the Magic Kingdom, you can hear the exact same notes from that short cartoon, again allowing people to go through and experience that thing. What's up, Yaya? I would also like to point out real quick, while we have Yaya here, because Yaya asked me, and two other people asked me this week, why is it called the Wednesday show, besides the fact that we are on Wednesday? And let's answer that question real quick until we go back to the Tom Sawyer Island. W.E.D. Walter Elias Disney. Okay, let's keep on going through here and continuing our journey. So in addition to going through, you can find the owl there. You can also find the bird, but he's kind of around the corner. And in the cartoon, the cogs would come down and almost hit the bird, but they'd always hit the one that was on the left or right of it. And that's the same thing when you were in the old mill here. It would have it so the cog would just barely miss the bird who's on his nest and tweeting his way away. Not like on Twitter, but just, you know, tweeting like a bird. So after you would go through the old mill, we would get along the waterfront. Let's stay on the waterfront. We'll go up to the top deck in just a little bit here. Get to the waterfront and you take a left. Now, when you would take a left, on our left-hand side, we have a few different details that are probably our most basic details of all. However, they are probably the most popular details found on the island, because I don't think people realize all the other really cool details that are on this island. So here we would have two different things. We would have a thing that says Huck was here, and then we would also have it so there is a painting that says Tom Hart's Becky. Again, a reference to Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher. So that's about all. It's just the white washed fence. If you keep on going down a little bit further, we will get to Aunt Polly's. Like I said earlier, Aunt Polly's originally sold sandwiches. They also sold ice cream. Eventually, they would just go to ice cream, and now it's just a dock where people can just kind of sit back and relax on. I would also like to point out that in my history of Tom Sawyer Island, like I said, I have loved this island for as long as I can remember. When I did my college program, I would work morning shifts every now and then. Like every now and then, they'd say, "Oh, by the way, you're working until 2 o'clock today." And I was like, "Okay." I'd show up and I'd clock out at 2, then I'd go back upstairs and go into the park and play for a while. And it became a tradition of mine. Whenever I had a morning shift, I would go up to the park, take a raft over to Tom Sawyer Island, go to Aunt Polly's, and I would get a hot fudge sundae and I would watch the riverboat go by. And it was amazing. It really was amazing. Oh, I wish Aunt Polly's was still around. It would be great if they opened up Aunt Polly's just for like a day before the entire island closed, because it was amazing. They actually had it open for a few special events not that long ago, a few years ago. One of my friends used to work. I haven't seen her for a while, but I used to work with her. And then she went off and she started working food and beverage over at Magic Kingdom. And when she went to food and beverage at Magic Kingdom, I ran into her one time. She said, "Hey, have you gone and get the food over at Tom Sawyer Island yet? Over at Aunt Polly's?" I was like, "It's open again?" She goes, "They're doing a test run this week only." And I had to work the next day and I never got over there, and the test run failed. So that's why we never heard of it again. All right, let's continue. So if we are going onto the deck of Aunt Polly's, you can find a few other little details there. Like I said earlier, there is a giant crate there and it says "Ship to Aunt Polly's." This is actually a vending machine for Coca-Cola products, because Coca-Cola is the only fountain drinks that can be sold at Walt Disney World. After you go through there, you can go across the old Crooked Bridge. The Crooked Bridge is a bridge that's crooked. Who knew? And if you go across that bridge, there's going to be some stairs on the left-hand side that will take us up to the lower, or not the lower, the upper level of the island. So when you get up to the upper level of the island, there is a fort up there. Now, this fort is not like the fort that we're going to be experiencing in a little bit when we get to the other side here. But when we get to the upper level, we are going to be getting to a fort that was created specifically by Tom and Huck. Now, the most amazing thing I think about this is if you look at all the material that was created for this fort, most people don't realize that it's all part of different ships that had been shipwrecked out on the Mississippi River. So if you look, there is a tube that people can go through. This tube is not just a tube, but it's actually a steam pipe from a steamship that would have been sailing on the Mississippi River. If you take a look, all of the wooden doors are actual doors from a ship. Everything on there is a ship, including the mast with a steering wheel on it and a little flag at the top. But none of those are the coolest detail that we can find here. Because if you take a look at the steering wheel, and then there at the top, there's like a ship sail. If you take a look here on the back side of the steering wheel, on the actual pole, you can find one of the most amazing details that is always overlooked because I don't think many people besides little kids are ever on that area. And if you push those little kids out of the way, you can look at this area too, my friends. Now, on the back here, we can find our second reference, and in my opinion, the coolest reference to Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher on the entire island, because on this pole is carved a heart, and in it, it says TS plus BT for Tom Sawyer plus Becky Thatcher. Most people do not see this. I think actually I might be the only person who has it published in a book. So, haha. But it's one of those details that when I found it, I was like, first very angry, thinking, who on earth carved their initials into this? Oh, it's Becky Thatcher and Tom Sawyer. And then I got really excited. So next time you're on the island, make sure you go take a look at that, because I think overall it's just a really cool detail that everyone just ignores because it's a kid's play area mainly. But if you look on the backside of the pole, that's where you have to look. And it's definitely, in my opinion, worth checking out at least one time in your life. Okay, let's get off of the play area and we're going to head down the stairs. So if we go kind of back where we came, but instead of going down the stairs on the right-hand side, we're going to go down the stairs on the left-hand side. This is going to bring us to our next mill, and this is going to be Potter's Mill. I just need to remember I know who it is for Disney. I'm just trying to think of who Potter was for the other thing. Where is it at? Potter's Mill, Potter's Mill, Potter's Mill. Muff Powder. Okay, so Muff Powder is a friend of Injun Joe in the book The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. But Admiral Joe Powell, wait, now I'm confusing myself. Muff Powder. And Major General Joe Potter, who was one of the main heads of construction for the Magic Kingdom. Actually, if you go on the boats that go from to the Ticket and Transportation Center to Magic Kingdom, one of them is named the Admiral or the Major General Joe Potter, the General Joe Potter. And this is actually named after the same person. The blue mill that faces towards Big Thunder Mountain Railroad is named after. This mill, it's not too exciting. It's cool because you can go up inside of the mill, but there's not a lot up there. It's always been one of my biggest disappointments in the island. That really is my biggest disappointment. It's the only thing that on the island that I'm like, I wish this would have been a little bit better. After you go down there on the left-hand side, we can find Huck's Landing, which I mentioned earlier. Now on Huck's Landing, you can find a checkers table, and that's about it. There's not a whole lot there besides 2 rocking chairs and a checkers table. Like I did say earlier, this is a spot where if the island is full, they will drop and pick people off at this spot as well as Tom's Landing, but don't really expect to ever be docked on here. I mean, I think I've been dropped off there maybe 5 to 10 times ever, if that. So not a whole lot. then a lot of people are probably like, I've never been on the island 5 to 10 times. But for me, it's not a lot. I usually is Tom's Landing is where you end up at. So when we get out of that area and we kind of keep on going along the river towards the north side of the island, of the little island, we'll eventually get to our next cave. Now, this next cave is my favorite cave, and I think it's my favorite cave just because of a few different details that we're going to go through. First off, this is called Injun Joe's Cave. That sign is no longer there, like I said earlier, because of the offensive nature of Injun Joe's name. They did take his name off of the rafts. They also took his name off of the cave name here as well. But in the story of Tom Sawyer, Joe would end up getting into a cave. He would get lost in the cave for ages until eventually he would die in the cave. So let's go into a cave. So if you remember in Tom Sawyer Island, or in the story Tom Sawyer, at the end of the thing, Tom gets lost in this cave with Becky Thatcher, and then Joe's out there and he's trying to kill them. And it's a huge labyrinth. They don't think any of them are ever going to get out alive. Tom and Becky obviously get out alive because they're the heroes of our story. And like I said, Joe does end up dead in this cave. So this cave has the most twists and turns out of all the caves that can be found on Tom Sawyer Island. There are going to be 3 caves. We've already talked about Scratchy's Mystery Mine. But this one has more options that kind of branch off. Then they eventually all come back together. You're not going to get lost. You're not going to be like Joe. You will live if you go in this cave, unless, I don't know, like you should live. So when you get in there, you get to our first little 2 ways that you can go there. The first way is literally an opening that's about this big, and it just goes around in a very, 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 very small circle, and it's not worth going in, but it is, because when you are in this cave, you can find different fossils upon the wall, specifically on that right-hand side. You can find these fossils scattered throughout the entire cave, but the spot that you can actually see it the best is in this first little cave. So if you look at the wall in this area, you can find different sea creatures had once lived here. This actually used to be below sea level. So you can find fossils of fish. You can also find fossils of different plant life, different things like that. It's a really cool little detail that's found upon the wall that most people just walk on by because it's very dark in there. But if you go to that area specifically, it is a little bit lighter for you to check out. Continue going down that path. On the left-hand side, we have another very small little walkway that you can kind of go through. Again, nothing too exciting, nothing too crazy, until we go around the corner and then bam, we're in the middle of a big cave. Now, in the middle of this big cave, you can find it so the rock work that's on the back wall, along with the lighting, makes it look like it's the devil's face looking straight at you. Another little reference to the book itself when they came across the devil's face while they were inside the cave, even though it was just a bunch of rock work that formed the devil's face. After that, you can go around the corner. When you go around the corner, you go across a little rickety bridge. Now, this little rickety bridge is another one of those details that I just absolutely love, and I'm going to miss tremendously, even though it is one of the most basic little details that Disney could have created. However, the way they did it, it's just so cool, because right below you on this bridge is a bottomless pit. That's right. You fall off this bridge, you're a goner. You'll never come back. You're going to be just like Joe, tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling and tumbling until all the end of your days, because this, my friends, is a bottomless pit that's a whopping, maybe like 5-6 feet deep. But with the way that the lighting works, it truly, especially when you're younger, it truly looks like a pit that just keeps on going and going and going, despite the fact that it is about maybe 5, maybe 6 feet deep completely. It's not that big. I threw a rock in there once just to test out how deep it actually went down. And it was like, whoop. I was like, oh, okay, it's right there. But it's a really cool little detail. Next time you're there, make sure to check it out. After you continue going around the rickety bridge, you get into one of my favorite parts of the entire cave. Again, keep in mind, you know that it's all going to lead back to one spot. However, this becomes the labyrinth part, where you have 3 different paths that you can choose. Now, depending on which path you choose, if you go down the middle path, it goes straight to the end of this little maze area. But if you go on the left-hand side, it eventually will break off into two other paths that will have it so you can choose either way. And then if you go to the right-hand side, it goes through three different paths that you can potentially do, all of them eventually leading to the other way. This whole pathway is probably 10 to 15 yards long. It's not very long. However, it is one of those spots where you go into that cave. And even if you don't know, or if you know where the things are going, it's so much fun because while you're in this area, you will hear multiple people every single time going, which way do we go? Which way do we go? Which way do we go? As if Disney's going to send us on an endless maze that you'll never get out of, and you will, eventually get lost and die just like Joe did. After you go through that area, you take a left and you take it right, and then you take a little left, and then you're out of the cave forever until the next time you go in there. At the exit of the cave, directly in front of you, we have the barrel bridge. Hands down, one of my favorite parts of not just Tom Sawyer Island, the Magic Kingdom. I love the barrel bridge. I absolutely love it. And every year it goes down for refurbishment for a few months, and it is the saddest time of my entire life. There are times where it has gone down for refurbishment, and I'm like, I want to go to Tom Sawyer Island, but I'll go over by the Liberty Bell Riverboat and take a look towards Tom Sawyer Island and be like, are the barrel bridges back? Yes, they are. Okay, I'm going out there. And if they're not, there has been times where I honestly have not gone out to Tom Sawyer Island because of that, being missing. So going across the barrel bridge, there are going to be a few different barrels that you can go across. If you want to go across the Brent Dodge way, you cannot use the handles. You have to run across the entire time, and you also have to step on the top of the barrels, and hopefully you don't fall into the river. I've never fallen in the river. I have gotten pretty close a few times, but overall, it's always a lot of fun going across the barrel bridge. On the other end of the barrel bridge, we get back to the crooked bridge, which we talked about earlier. So we're just going to go past across it again, go past the entrance of the barrel bridge, and then we're going to get to the big bridge. Now, this big bridge connects the little island with the big island. So let's head up to the big island. Now, the big island on the right-hand side, as we approach the fort, we will find a crate in the ground off on the right-hand side, kind of in the woods. At times, the crate will switch out. Right now, it is a crate that just is a crate. There's nothing on it. However, there are other times where you can see that it is addressed to one Samuel Clemens, aka the name of Mark Twain himself. So when you're looking at this name of Samuel Clemens, it also has the birthplace of Samuel Langhorne Clemens, aka Mark Twain. So if you ever want to go and figure out where he actually was from, you can just go to that address there. Just, put it onto MapQuest. It'll be like, arriving at destination in 42 hours. And then you can just take 42-hour trip up to Hannibal, Missouri, and take a look. It's probably not going to take 42 hours, probably like 20, maybe 19, 17. I have no idea. I don't know how far away that is. It takes about 21 hours to get from here to Wisconsin. That's all I know. Okay, so you can find that crate there, but continuing down the path, we will eventually get to Fort Langhorne. Now, Fort Langhorne is spelled Langhorn. That's it. Because Langhorne, of course, being the middle name of Samuel Langhorne Clemens. However, the actual Samuel Langhorne Clemens had it so his middle name was Langhorne with an N, and this fort is missing that E at the end, but it is still a nod to him. When you go into the fort, there are going to be three different ways that you can get up to the upper deck. You can also go to what I think is the smelliest bathroom in the entire Magic Kingdom, but people still use it every day because you have to go to the bathroom. You have to go to the bathroom. So when you enter into the main area there is a turret on the right-hand side. There's a turret on the left-hand side. And then there's also a staircase past a little area in the middle. Let's start by going up on the right-hand side, and we're going to walk around the path and eventually get back to the lower level where we're going to talk about a few other really cool details. So our first thing that we're going to go is we're going to go upstairs. At the very top, you can find a gun rack that is pointing towards the Haunted Mansion woods. You can't actually see any buildings. The only time that you can actually see any people is going to be when the Liberty Bell Riverboat's going by. Up on that deck, we're going to have two different guns that are pointing towards the woods. Go down one little level. You can walk across above the smelly bathrooms, and you can go into our second turret. Up in that one, we again have two guns that are facing out. Then we can go down, go across, go to the third turret. There we have three guns, two facing one way, one facing another way, and then go down. And then in the middle, on our way to the last turret, we have it so there are two guns that are facing towards Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, along with two cannons that are also facing towards Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. On those big cannons, there is also a sign that says "Use cotton when shooting," and it's all misspelled. I love it. I love this island so much. When you go up to the last turret, again, we have two more guns that are facing out. All these guns, when you shoot, it just makes a noise, and that's about it. They don't actually shoot anyone. So, you know, be safe, don't kill anyone, but at the same time, make some noise. That's the noise it makes. Then you can go down, and we'll go back down to our lower level. Now, on the lower level of the entire fort, we can find a few different really cool details. Number one, we have another checker table because, of course, when we are out in the Old West, we were going to play some mighty fun games of checkers. Who wouldn't? Right past the checker tables, we have our stables. Now, in the stables, we have one human who is actually an automatronic that is just constantly moving like this. You never see his face. In addition to that guy, we have a few horses, we have a few chickens, and we also have a really cool hidden Mickey that is placed on the wall. You've got one of the drinking flasks that's hanging from a bar, and if you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, it's a drinking flask. But if you turn your head upside down, bam, hidden Mickey. So in addition to these different guys right here, on the far corner on the lower level, we can find a thing that says the guardhouse. If you go to the guardhouse, you can hear snoring inside, and the guard is actually snoring inside. Now, we could take a turn around and go down the stairs. However, we're not going to do that because instead we're going to go outside just for a second and go down to the little dock that is facing towards Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. When you get to this dock that is facing towards Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, there have been some rocking chairs there in the past. Right now, there are not any rocking chairs there. Again, one of the saddest things in the history of mankind. However, when you're sitting there enjoying yourself, you can find some crates on the right-hand side. And on these crates, there is a thing that says Bowie. This is actually a reference to the Bowie knife, actually named after the man who created the Bowie knife. Again, we have the address there. That address actually takes you to the guy who created the Bowie knife. So, again, enter your map quest, and you can go on a road trip to both Samuel Langhorne Clemens' house along with Mr. Bowie's house as well. Let's go back into the fort because when we get back into the fort, we've got yet another tunnel that we can go through. This is the escape tunnel. This is going to be the only tunnel that is actually found on the island that is purposefully used as the means for escape, because just in case someone is attacking the fort and they're coming in and they want to destroy you, well, guess what? You're in luck, because if you are a chicken like myself, you can run away. like every good fighter can do. So you can go down the stairs, and when you get downstairs, there is going to be a little tunnel. It goes a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, then a little to the left again. And then again, we have one of those two ways that we can go, either to the left or the right. The one on the left is just a lot skinnier than the one on the right. It literally is like yay big. It's not a very long thing at all for you to do. You can continue going through the tunnel, and then we have one more of those things, and then eventually we exit out of the tunnel on the other side, and you are on the side by the Haunted Mansion. However, you can't see the Haunted Mansion from this vantage point. You have to go down the river just a little bit. However, if you are like me and you enjoy watching the Liberty Bell Riverboat sail on by, this is probably my favorite spot to watch it from, because there's no outside noise. It's just calm, it's peaceful. It's literally you, the river, and the ferry boat. So if you are trying to figure out a spot to watch the riverboat in the future and you want something that's going to be more calm and peaceful, this is the spot that I highly recommend. And then we're going to continue going down that pathway, which is going to bring us back towards the entrance of Fort Langhorne. Now, we are at the end of our journey of Tom Sawyer Island. We've covered the entire island over the last 50 minutes. So while we go through and walk back to the main dock, I need you guys to start throwing your questions into the comments below, and we will answer as many questions as possible before we run out of time. Of course, if we went up from that 7,801 subscribers too, we will go into some extra innings here too. So keep throwing those questions. They might be worth something someday. I don't know if it's worth something. But anyways, so let's continue going down, because after we exit out of that entire area, we can go back across the big bridge. We can either go the left way or the right way. I always go to the right way, where you're going to go past the Joe's Cave, along with Huck's Landing, along with Potter's Windmill. And then, of course, eventually we're going to make our way past Old Scratch's Mystery Mine, past the map, and back to Tom's Landing. When we get back to Tom's Landing, we are waiting for our boat, and that boat will take us back to the mainland of Frontierland. And that, my friends, is Tom Sawyer Island. Okay, if anyone out there has any questions, start throwing your questions in the comments here. While you guys are throwing your questions in the comments, let's take a look here and see what our subscriber total is. We started off at 7,801. We are currently at 7,802. We went up. Yeah. Okay, let's go through and answer some of your questions here. Are there picnic tables anywhere on the island? Yes, there are. So if you go up to the second level, up by the fort, okay, so the fort is on the southernmost section of the island at the upper level of the island, if that makes sense. If you start coming towards the northern part of that southern island, there's a lot of directions here, there is 2 picnic tables, and then there's a little river, a little stream that goes through the middle, and then on the other side of that stream, there is another 2 picnic tables. So if you ever want to have it so you can sit back, relax, enjoy your time out there, that is a good place to go. I've seen one time where someone was bringing a tray from Pecos Bill on the rafts and bringing it over. It would be cool if they would give you a lantern and let you stay out there in the evening. That would be amazing. That would be my biggest dream come true. One of the guys I know had posted something on Facebook one time talking about how he was on the island. It started downpour. It was right before the island was about to close. They did a sweep. He was like trying to stay dry in one of the turrets of the tower. They didn't check on him. After it started to let up, he went down towards the main dock. And when he got down to the main dock, there was no rafts going. And he had to like wave someone down on the other side. He wasn't trying to sneak on the island. He was just genuinely like lost and confused. Who's your favorite country bear? And can you tell me a fact about one of the country bears? It's Big Al, but we're not going to do any country bear stuff right now. Right now, we're specifically doing Tom Sawyer Island. It is a Tom Sawyer Island episode tonight. So let's keep it Tom Sawyer Island centered here. So any other questions out there about Tom Sawyer Island before we wrap up this bad boy? Yeah, so if you want to, the Tom Sawyer Island chapter of this book starts at page 44, and it goes to page 57. So you got 13 pages of Tom Sawyer Island, or you could go back in time and watch this episode of the Wednesday show over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, so you guys could have a complete idea of what it is. While we go through here, we'll do a recap of the history while we wait for any last questions about Tom Sawyer Island out there. Ooh, here's a really good question. So is the Walt Disney World Island exactly like the Disneyland version? No, they're very, very, very different. Very different. Like I cannot stress how different they are. There are some similarities. There are caves on both, but overall, they're very, very different. Like you really cannot stress how different they are. I'm going to do a quick reading for you guys from A Closer Look at the Magic Kingdom's Frontierland, and then we'll take 2, maybe 3 more questions depending on how many subscribers we get. Okay, Tom Sawyer Island history. A year after Disneyland opened in 1955, Tom Sawyer Island became the central focal point of the Rivers of America. The island became so popular amongst guests that when the Magic Kingdom was being planned, it was decided that it too would have a Tom Sawyer Island in the center of the waterway. When the Magic Kingdom first opened, the northern island was known as Tom Sawyer Island, while the southern island was known as the South Island. For the first 2 years of park operation, the island stood in the water as a mysterious island that was not open for guests to visit. It wouldn't be until 1973 when the islands were joined together by a bridge that would collectively be known as Tom Sawyer Island. Shortly after the 2 islands were joined, the attraction opened to guests. For the first 40 years that the attraction was open, guests could find 6 paintbrushes scattered around the island. When a guest returned one of the hidden paintbrushes to a cast member, they would receive a prize in return for their discovery. After the creation of paper fast passes, guests would receive a fast pass for either Big Thunder Mountain Railroad or Splash Mountain for each member of their party. With the addition of Fast Pass Plus in 2013, the paper fast passes began to be phased out around the park, and with it, the search for the paintbrushes on Tom Sawyer Island. The island is also home to Aunt Polly's Refreshments. From 1973 until 2007. Guests could stop by a quick service location on the eastern side of the island to get ice cream and other snacks. By 2007, the restaurant was closed for good. The restaurant did reopen for a short period in 2015 to see if guests could make the trip to the island to enjoy some snacks, but the experimental opening was short-lived. Besides Aunt Polly's and the paintbrushes, the attraction has remained practically unchanged since it opened on May 20th, 1973. But yeah, so there is a few similarities between the two, mainly the caves. But back in like the mid 2000s, they decided that they were going to change up the Tom Sawyer Island over in Disneyland to be themed more around Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates of the Caribbean, the films were massive, massive hits at that point. So they decided to put a little bit of a spin with Tom Sawyer Island, or I'm sorry, with Pirates of the Caribbean onto Tom Sawyer Island. So when they did that, it's now like Tom Sawyer Island or the Pirates Lair at Tom Sawyer's Island. And overall, I still enjoy it a lot, but I think that our Tom Sawyer Island is the better island, in my personal opinion. Ours is a bigger island too. Like I feel like there's more to explore, but the caves over there are pretty cool. But the parents act weird. Like, why is this grown man in the caves? Come sit at the bench and watch your kids play. Well, guess what, lady? I don't have a kid, and I want to go in the caves. Okay, let's go to our next question here. I never been in the island. My parents are always rides, and more rides. Well, you get a ride on a raft here. So it's definitely worth checking out, especially before it closes up. What's your favorite season to visit the island? I want to say winter because it's cooler, and I do run around a lot on that island. Alex has been with me. There's a few people out there who've been with me, and I run around that island like a child, like legit. Like when I'm by myself, I'm running around that island. I'm having so much. I love that island. I absolutely love that island. Like I cannot stress how much I love that island. My pin's not here. Oh yeah, that's right here. I love this island so much. It's stuck to the wall. I have a pin over here of Tom Sawyer Island. It really truly means the world to me. The only thing that's bad about visiting in the winter is because it gets darker earlier, the island closes earlier. So the island is under operation of the sun. So if the park is, or if the sun's up for a longer period of time, like during the summer, the island's open longer. And if it's winter time, it closes an earlier time. So just go out, enjoy the island, enjoy it. Oh, I can't believe it's disappearing. When the island closes, will there be any opening day, opening year attractions left? Well, remember, Tom Sawyer Island opened up in 1973, so this actually is not an opening day attraction. However, we will have here it says bring on Western Cars Land. I am excited about Cars Land. Don't get me wrong. I am excited about Cars Land. I love this island. I absolutely love this island. And I get it. I've said this so many times. I totally get why it's going away because I've gone out there so many times and I'm literally the only person out there. What was the question? I was answering a question. Oh, when the island closes. So in Frontierland, the only things that will be open since opening day is the Frontierland train station. However, this is not the opening day Frontierland train station. That train station was actually located a little bit further south, kind of where Tiana's Bayou Adventure is right now. And it was ground level. And then Country Bear Jamboree can arguably be an opening day attraction, but at the same time, they completely rethemed it, but they've rethemed it in the past too, and then it's gone back to the original. So and then Frontierland also had the Frontierland Shooting Arcade until just a few months ago. So that was an opening day thing, but that's no longer there. But besides that, inside of the Magic Kingdom, opening day attractions that are still around is things we can actually, let's list off all of them real quick here. The Walt Disney World Railroad, we have the Walt Disney, or the Main Street vehicles, the Swiss Family Treehouse, Jungle Cruise, Tropical Serenade / the Enchanted Tiki Room. It's essentially the same. It's just a little bit shorter than it used to be. The Liberty Bell Riverboat, currently an opening year attraction that was opened up a day after the park opened. Haunted Mansion, Hall of Presidents, Peter Pan's Flight, 2 days after the park opened. It's a Small World, the Carousel, Dumbo, just moved locations, Mad Tea Party, it's been around since opening day, and the Speedway. All of those are all opening day attractions. So we actually still have a lot of opening day items that are still found inside of Magic Kingdom, which is great because if you look at like Epcot, there's only one attraction that has been completely unchanged since opening day, and that is Impressions de France, which only runs for like an hour every day. And then if you go to Disney's Hollywood Studios, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. That's opening day. We do have opening year in Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular actually just celebrated its 35th anniversary 2 days ago. And then Star Tours and Muppet Vision 3D. Or no, Muppet Vision 3D was a few years later. Never take that. Star Tours, though. No, Star Tours was, no, that was December. Okay, so we're good. And then Animal Kingdom, we still have quite a bit over there. We got, well, we're losing Dinoland. We still have It's Up to Be a Bug, but that's going to be closing soon, too. The Safari, the Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail, which at the start was the Pangani Forest Exploration Trail, and then Rafiki's Planet Watch. So, yeah, not bad. I'm excited for the new walkway to Big Thunder Mountain. That will be a lot of open foot drag. Yes, I know there's a lot of people out there who are devastated. I am personally devastated. I'm really gonna miss it, but at the same time, like I keep on saying, I really do understand it. But I think I've learned a long time ago to just trust the Imagineers and trust what they're going to come up with is going to be amazing. When they announced Cars Land, I was not disappointed whatsoever. I was extremely, extremely, extremely excited about the Cars attractions. But at the same time, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, Disney's ruining Frontierland and blah blah." I say trust the Imagineers because if the Imagineers, I feel like, yeah, there's some times where they might have misses where it's like, that could have been better, or that was not what I was expecting. But overall, I feel like the Imagineers always hit out of the park. So I'm extremely excited to see what's going to happen. Let's go here. This will be our last question here. What do you think Walt would think about it closing? I think he'd be fine with it. Walt Disney was a huge prompter of saying we're going to keep on expanding, we're going to keep on building, we're going to keep on changing things, we're going to keep on evolving. If you look at Disneyland over the first 11 years when Walt Disney was still alive, there are a lot of things that opened, but he also closed down a ton of things, a lot of things that I don't think people even like realize that he was like, oh yeah, get rid of that. We need more room for this, or we need more room for that. I mean, at one point there was an entire circus land, and he just, eventually was like, oh no, we could use it for something completely different. Let's get rid of it. So I think Walt would be completely fine with it. A lot of people I've seen online said, oh, Walt would be devastated. He would hate this. And I think it's the complete opposite. I think Walt was such a keep moving forward type of mindset. Like, let's expand. Let's build new things. Let's not stick in, he always said it's important to look at the past, but it's more important not to get stuck in the past. And I feel like that is a thing that he said so often that I think it would just be, I think he's excited. I think he would have been excited about it. I feel like they tricked us by opening the garage theme in MGM. Sorry, Brain Labs. The garage theme? Oh, yeah. The garage theme quick service in MGM. The one that's over by, are you talking about the Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy? Or when they used to have the garage, there used to be the garage where you can meet Mater and Lightning McQueen back in the back part of studios. Yeah, I'm trusting the Imagineers. I'm sad that we're losing something that I do truly love. The saddest thing about closures of these parks is the idea of never experiencing it again. Because I talked about this before. We've lost other things, but when you have a movie or a TV show let's say a TV show. Let's say I always loved How I Met Your Mother. That was one of my favorite TV shows. And at the end of the series, I was like, oh, it's so sad I'm not going to experience that show anymore. But you can still experience it because I can go back and I can put in my DVD. That's right, I got the DVDs. And I can go rewatch the series at my own leisure. And when it comes to attractions, when it's closed, and you can never experience it the same way again. So we'll see. I'm putting my faith out there that we will be seeing stuff. But yeah, I would probably be more bummed if it was something I wasn't interested, but I am obsessed with the car stuff. I love car stuff. I think the Imagineers have already knocked out of the park with Cars things, so I'm extremely excited to see what we got. All right, but we're going to wrap up this bad boy right here. As always, thank you everyone out there for joining us once again tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's episode all about Tom Sawyer Island. I hope you learned something new. Well, while I sit here and talk, throw something something new that you learned about Tom Sawyer Island in the chat room. I'm curious. I really am curious. I used to do this actually quite a while ago, where we would end the show and I'd be like, "Oh, tell me something that you knew," because I am always fascinated. And then you always have one person like, "I knew everything." I'm like, "No," and then I cry myself to sleep. But will there be a show next week? Yes, we are going to be doing. We have never missed an episode, so we will definitely be doing the show next week. We'll be coming to you live from the Disney Magic, so make sure you join us next week at 9:30, live from the Disney cruise ship. It's going to be fun, or the connection is going to be terrible and it's going to be awful, but no matter what, we're going to attempt it. And it will not be on Facebook. It will only be on YouTube, because the only way I can do the Facebook broadcast is through this app. So this app is a computer-based app only. They won't let me do it on my phone. So it's going to be YouTube only next week. So make sure you join us on YouTube and YouTube only next week for the show. But thank you everyone out there for joining us. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Until next time, remember that anything can happen if you let it. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye now. Bye-bye. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I just can't stand this kind of pressure.